Why has a dark, crude, almost primeval substance, locked away for millennia beneath the earth, become the single most powerful and destructive force in the modern American story, shaping our fortunes, driving our wars, and defining our very concept of freedom? The epic of oil or petroleum is more than a tale of combustion. It is the definitive biography of the industrial age and the relentless pursuit of human ambition, the invisible hand guiding the last 2 centuries of history. Ancient civilizations, long before the first automobile rolled off an assembly line, understood the practical, if limited power of this material, particularly its tar-like sticky deposits. The Babylonians, dating back to the 4th millennium BCE, notably utilized naturally occurring bitumen as a structural mortar for their towering ziggurats and as a crucial sealant for waterproofing their ships and irrigation systems, a utilitarian use confirmed by archaeological digs across Mesopotamia. This early use wasn't about energy, but construction and preservation. In the East, the early Chinese were centuries ahead in their experimentation, becoming the first to drill primitive wells using simple iron bits and incredibly long bamboo poles in the 1st century BCE. Records show they primarily sought the natural gas, often found alongside crude oil, which they piped and burned to boil brines and evaporate salt, effectively creating an incredibly early localized fuel industry, though the heavy crude itself was still mostly an untapped byproduct. For millennia, petroleum remained a marginal commodity, sometimes valued for folk medicine or occasionally employed as a strategic weapon ingredient, such as in the devastating Greek fire, the Byzantine incendiary weapon used from the 7th century CE onward, whose exact naphtha or crude oil-based composition remains a fiercely guarded historical mystery, yet whose impact in naval warfare was undeniable and terrifying. The substance was often dismissed, seen as little more than a nuisance that bubbled up in creeks and swamps. The true American oil saga, and the modern global dependency, began not with the gas pump, but with a simple, desperate need for better light. By the mid-19th century, the growing population of the industrialized world was facing an acute energy crisis as the primary source of lamp fuel, whale blubber, had become catastrophically scarce and unaffordable, driving up the cost of illumination to luxury levels. This economic desperation spurred the search for a cheaper, more reliable alternative. The pivotal moment arrived in 1859 in the small, muddy town of Titusville, Pennsylvania, where a former railway conductor of little distinction, Edwin Drake, successfully drilled the world's first commercially viable oil well, striking oil at a shallow depth of just 69 feet. Drake's technical success proved that crude oil could be extracted reliably and affordably, and its immediate derivative, kerosene, the illuminating oil, immediately swept the nation, replacing whale oil and transforming the American nightscape with cheap, abundant light, fundamentally altering the rhythm of urban and rural life and igniting the first great U.S. industrial boom. The subsequent oil rush attracted thousands of opportunistic wildcatters to Pennsylvania and West Virginia, creating chaotic, temporary boomtowns defined by mud, ambition, and sudden fleeting wealth. The gold rush, however, attracted the ultimate American titan, John D. Rockefeller, who saw beyond the mud and the wells. He understood that the power lay not in the finding, but in the control. Through the establishment of Standard Oil in 1870, Rockefeller pioneered a revolutionary model. He mastered the art of refining, standardization, and distribution, using brutal business efficiency, vertical integration, and ruthless acquisition to forge a near-total monopoly over American oil pipelines and refining capacity. By the 1880s, his actions transformed the once chaotic substance into a tightly controlled, predictable, and essential commodity that dictated the terms of global energy commerce. Rockefeller's empire demonstrated a profound truth that defined the next century. Control over the flow and processing of oil was far more valuable than owning the well itself, necessitating massive infrastructure, the steel pipelines, the huge oil tankers, and the sprawling, intricate refineries, which instantly became strategic national assets coveted by global powers. The final catastrophic transformation arrived with the 20th century and the widespread adoption of the internal combustion engine, making oil's once discarded byproduct, gasoline, the ultimate strategic resource. Naval powers, particularly Britain and the US, converted their fleets from slow, bulky coal to far superior fuel oil, granting unprecedented speed and operational range, a strategic advantage that historians acknowledge was a key determinant in World War I. The assured flow of American petroleum was literally described as the lifeblood of the Allied forces, the cemented oil's role in modern warfare and geopolitics, causing Western powers to turn their strategic gaze toward the Middle East, where immense reserves were discovered throughout the 1930s, dramatically shifting the world's energy center of gravity. The subsequent fight to secure access to the oil fields of nations like Saudi Arabia and Iran has created the complex, volatile dynamic that defines the region and shapes global diplomacy to this very day. The inherent scientific secret behind oil's power lies in its complex molecular nature as a concentrated hydrocarbon. When these compressed ancient organic molecules are ignited, they release an incredible amount of stored solar energy per unit of weight, making it an unparalleled power source that societies value not just for economic gain, but for the sheer psychological power it grants. This power allows us to move armies, power entire cities, and reshape the physical landscape at an industrial scale. However, this material progress came at an undeniable cost. The rapid expansion brought labor exploitation, catastrophic industrial accidents, and most critically, massive environmental damage through spills, pollution, and the undeniable role of hydrocarbon combustion in accelerating global climate change. Oil is ultimately the defining fuel of the American century, the material that accelerated our progress to unimaginable speeds while simultaneously embedding within our modern world a devastating environmental price, a perpetual reminder that the pursuit of limitless energy carries an equally limitless and difficult cost for. If you love exploring the hidden forces that shaped our world, subscribe for more stories like this.